Good afternoon, everybody. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into inflammation. So it's going to be kind of like if any of you are scuba divers, you can do a really deep dive, but you can only do it for a short period of time before you have to come up for air. So that's what we're going to do today. If you have any questions, obviously reach out to us here at Vitality. But let's kind of dig in a little bit to inflammation. So what exactly is inflammation? Maybe you're somebody who's had an ongoing situation where symptoms of something that are not improving. So maybe it's joint aches and pains that are newer for some reason or had this like initial start date and you cannot figure out why they won't go away. Maybe you're taking a leave, an ibuprofen, and no matter what you do, they might feel better temporarily, but they always come back. Maybe you're the person who seen your provider, your physician, or nurse practitioner, and they prescribe this regimen for you, like you've been diagnosed with osteoarthritis, or maybe they've said you just need to eat better and exercise more and you'll feel better. And you've done those things, but just never improved, or the symptoms always come back. There's an underlying theme in all of the scenarios you can think of where you have a chronic symptom, and that's inflammation. At Vitality, we 100% believe that inflammation is the heart of all disease. If you don't have inflammation, you won't have chronic wear and tear, and you won't have a disease that kicks up. So our goal is always to find the root of inflammation, take care of it, and then watch those disease processes either get reversed or stop where they're at. So inflammation is a really, really big deal. There's biochemically so many different reactions involved. There's inflammatory cascades that are involved. There's genetic predispositions involved in inflammation. And if you have any of those predispositions or genetic SNPs, you're going to be much more vulnerable to inflammatory issues and inflammatory diseases. So we love to really dig in and find out what the root cause, where is it coming from? Why is somebody having inflammatory issues? I would tell you one of the main things that you can do is address diet first. Diet really improves about 80% of your issues, or at least kind of helps us tease out where the problems are actually lying in. So for instance, if you were going to do more of an anti-inflammatory diet, there's extremes, right? There's something you can try conservatively, like I'm going to dabble in it. And then there's the all out, I am so sick and tired of my symptoms from inflammation that I want to hit it hard. So a conservative approach would be somebody who would cut out sugar. So sugar is one of the most inflammatory foods you can take in, or inflammatory molecules, I'm going to say. Unfortunately, it is considered a food group at this point. So sugar is one of the worst things you can possibly do. The next thing on the list would be dairy. And the third thing for an inflammatory perspective is gluten. So if you know those three things are the most inflammatory things you can put in your body, you're going to avoid it. It's kind of like, what if I say you're out in the desert driving and you're getting really low on gas and your only option is this gas station in the middle of nowhere, and you know the gas is going to be so bad. It's maybe going to be diluted. It might be old, no matter what it is. And you put it in your car because you need gas to run on. And then 20 miles down the road, your engine starts to sputter, and hopefully you can make it to the city. But if not, pull off to the side of the road because your engine's not working. The same exact philosophy happens with what you put in your body. Knowing that sugar and dairy and gluten are inflammatory is a huge impetus to just not do it. If you want to know if that's going to help you at all, try 2 weeks. Cut out one of those for 2 weeks. So if you eat a lot of cheese or a lot of dairy, cut that out for 2 weeks and see how you feel. You'll recognize that there are improvements in your inflammatory conditions based on those simple changes. So that's one of the most basic things you can do for inflammation. Now, why in the world does that happen? Why does food trigger inflammatory responses? Just like diet is 80% of getting well in most conditions, gut health is an 80% of inflammatory issues. So you'll notice the majority of inflammatory molecules come from your gut. If you have symptoms of bloating, heartburn, gassiness, changes in bowel habits like diarrhea and constipation, if you feel like there's appetite fluctuations or you feel bad after you eat certain things, that's a huge red flag that your gut is not a happy place. So what really does that mean? That's a whole nother topic, and I can't wait till we can dive into that a little bit further. Those inflammatory molecules, most of them, either the triggers, the signalers, or the actual inflammatory molecules themselves, come from your intestinal tract. So when you eat something and it goes into your stomach and then it's passed to your small intestine and then large intestine. When it gets to the large intestine, your body will notice, is it friend or foe? And if it's foe, it will try to get rid of it. And it produces a lot of byproducts that affect the bacteria that normally live there. Those bacteria are crucial for your nutrients and for your immune responses. So believe me in saying your gut is extremely important in the inflammatory cascade. You will not get well from an inflammatory condition until we fix your gut. So let me talk to you about a really unique patient. And this is not your normal scenario for inflammation, but I want to tell you how, from a functional medicine perspective, we approach things. I had this really amazing lady. She was in her mid 60s. She had had 3 stents already placed and 1 full-on heart attack. She came to see me because she did not want to be on her statin medication. She wanted to do everything she could to not be on those. She just felt like that is not the answer for me, and I want to do something different. So, of course, we have to always educate the patient, the pros and cons. With her cardiac history, certainly there was a big concern about somebody who doesn't want to do anything that in some areas has been shown to be helpful. So I said, we'll give you a short leash. Let's aggressively hit this. Let's see how you respond. And we'll take it one day at a time. So when she originally came in, she had a cardiac CRP of 15. Now, ideal is less than 1. Bad is above 3. So 15 was just so high. That certainly made me nervous. And so I said, let's do a 30-day window. There's something called the coronary disease reversal diet, and it's a strict vegan, no oil diet. Is amazing research on this reversing heart disease. So that's what I did with her first. I said, if you're really, really interested in making this work, this is what we're going to do. Strict vegan diet, no oils. 30 days, we're going to check your markers again. She was absolutely on board 100%. So she came back and she had only lost a couple of pounds, which is unusual with that kind of change in diet. And her cardiac CRP went from 15 to 13. Now, that's not a dramatic change to me. With that much of a change in her diet, I had a really hard time understanding why that didn't work better. Then we started talking a little bit more about her symptoms. She had some heartburn. She has some joint aches and pains, just a number of general inflammatory-like symptoms. So thinking back to the whole concept that inflammation is the heart of disease, I thought, what if she has a general underlying inflammatory condition that's causing vascular inflammation that we see in her cardiac CRP? And what if we targeted her from an inflammatory perspective instead of this cardiac disease reversal perspective of, stopping further plaque development with watching cholesterol and really aggressively avoiding red meats? What if we switched from that approach to an anti-inflammatory approach? So again, I let her know, hey, I don't have evidence this is going to work. It may not work. You may end up worse. You may end up better. I don't know. But it seems to make sense to me that we target this from an inflammatory perspective because your inflammatory markers are so high. So she was on board. She's like, yeah, I'll try it. I want to try whatever I can. So what we did is we put her on an anti-inflammatory diet. And what that consists of is no sugar, no dairy, no grains. And she was on lean meats and loads of vegetables for 30 days. Very different diet. The calorie intake from that is very different than a strict vegan diet with no oil. She had lost a couple pounds on the strict vegan diet, no oil. When she came back in 30 days, she had lost 18 pounds. She felt amazing. Her aches and pains were gone and her heartburn was gone. When I rechecked her cardiac CRP, it had fallen. Originally it was 15, then she went down to 13 and it was down to 5. That was the lowest it had ever been in her entire cardiac history. Now, if you think about somebody who's typically on a cardiac diet, it's avoid all red meats, avoid fats, because those are typically more on the cholesterol scene. And what I did is actually put her on lean meats and fats and lots of vegetables. You'll see that every patient is different. You need to find somebody who's going to listen to you and be able to think outside the box, because not everybody fits the certain pattern of what their body needs. In her situation, she had a very important inflammatory issue going on. It was changed significantly by diet, and we used some other things to wrap up the rest of those numbers so that her cardiac CRP is less than 3, which, coming from where she was from, is fantastic. She continues to do well, feel well. She continued to lose weight, and she's just doing amazing right now. So thinking outside the box, addressing her inflammatory issues, knowing that inflammation is the heart of disease, and being open to figuring out what can I do to improve what I put in my body, how my gut processes it. Does it turn it into something inflammatory or not? and what exactly to do next. So I hope you found this to be helpful. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to Vitality. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll see you again next week.